The Skills Development Act is one of the subtopics of recent legislation, and you should know the nature of the Skills Development Act and also the aims and purpose of the Skills Development Act. So, what does the nature of the Skills Development Act entails? Firstly, the Act was introduced in response to redress the equity in the workplace. Now, what does that mean? It means that prior to 1994, the workplace was a discriminatory place where workers were not treated equally. And so this Skills Development Act was then enacted to make sure that equity occurs within the workplace and is legislated. That means mandated. And secondly, the Skills Development Act was an integral part of the National Skills Development Strategy. And the aim of that strategy is to link learning to the demands within the workplace. Simply means that if your job entails you to have a certain skill, then you should be trained to acquire that skill. And obviously that will then also benefit the company or the business. The Skills Development Act, you should also know the aims and the purpose of the Skills Development Act. Please just take note that the examiner can either ask you the aims or the purpose. So make sure that you are prepared adequately. Now, what are the aims and what are the purpose? Firstly, to develop the skill of workers. Now, it could be that some workers may not have any skills related to the work they are doing. And so with the Skills Development Act, the aim is to develop the skill of those workers. Secondly, the Skills Development Act was also introduced to ensure that businesses invest in the upskilling of their workers and that they don't just focus on making a profit and neglecting the skill of their workers. Thirdly, to ensure that the skills of workers are developed and improved. Now that differs from the first one, where the worker had no skills, and the second one, the improvement of skills, taking that worker to another level so that he can be even more efficient on other levels also. And fourthly, to ensure that workers that were from previously disadvantaged communities, that they are given a better opportunity to obtain work in other fields, in other sectors also. And then finally, to make sure that the workplace becomes a learning environment. It's not just a place where the emphasis is on productivity and profit, but then the worker improves his ability to perform other things also. And so learning becomes a lifelong project that workers are involved in.